Now available for the first time on Google Play, The Man Crisis. Learn why so many men are falling apart in an increasingly gynocentric world in The Man Crisis. Get your copy on Google Play today. Last weekend, there was a series of shootings that took place in homeless communities in Washington and New York City. And in these incidents, 5 men were shot and 1 was killed by a 30-year-old man who was alleged to have participated in these crimes. Now, your 30-year-old Gerald Brevard was arrested in connection with these shootings and faces a first-degree murder charge and is under investigation for the shootings of several of these other men. Now, the police are seeing this as an isolated incident, but when I take a critical examination of the behavior of Gerald Brevard, it fits right in line with the pattern and profile that I talk about in my book, The Man Crisis. And from his father, it looks like your Gerald Brevard had been a man in crisis for an extended period of time, and he was struggling with issues as related to mental health. Now, your Gerald Brevard, as I see it, was one of these men in crisis because he was not understanding how reality worked according to his father, and there was a desperate need to get your Gerald Brevard some help. Unfortunately, he fell between the cracks of the mental health system, and because he fell between the cracks of the mental health system, he fell into the criminal justice system. And this is something that has happened to so many men in crisis. Many of these men who are in crisis, they desperately need help as related to their mental health, and sadly they can't get any help as related to their mental health due to our extremely bureaucratic healthcare system and the fact that mental health has a negative stigma, especially in communities like the Black community. And because a lot of people can't really get help as related to their mental health, many of these men, the only time that they get any sort of help whatsoever is when they come in contact with the criminal justice system. Now, your Gerald Brevard had been in and out of jail, as his father had stated, as related to numerous episodes as related to his mental health, and this incident seems to be the thing that would possibly lead to him winding up in the criminal justice system permanently. Now, your Gerald Brevard allegedly was out here looking to participate in behavior where he was going to go out here and be like a serial killer, targeting these homeless men. And this is something that many of these guys do because they don't see homeless people as human beings, because in their dark rose-colored reality, they don't see human beings as human beings. They see them as objects in their world, and because they don't see a human being as a human being, they feel like they can do whatever they want to that individual. And what happened in the case of one of these men is that he shot this man and then went out and got some gasoline and allegedly poured it on the individual and burned his body. And that was the first person that he shot. And then after he burned that body, that's how the police started to find him. And then they found out he had shot other people between New York and Washington. And this man was a man in crisis. And sadly, many of those injuries and deaths could have been prevented had we had a good mental health system to deal with this individual's mental health. Had we had a mental health system that invested in men, many of these men like this would not be in crisis. But sadly, here in America, we don't want to acknowledge the man crisis going on here in America until it's too late. This man possibly could have been prevented from harming other people had our mental health system been on point. Had our mental health system been on point, the father of this individual, who had been crying for help for many years to put this man away, this man would have been in an insane asylum being given care that he needed, but we didn't do that. And what happened was, sadly, a homeless man wound up losing his life and others wound up in the hospital. And it really is a sad state of affairs here in America where we don't really take care of our men. And because we don't take care of our men, they wind up becoming men in crisis. And these men in crisis wind up becoming ticking time bombs. And these ticking time bombs wind up walking across the streets looking to do harm to others. And sadly, this time bomb wound up going off and exploding. And when he went off and exploding, he went off to go out here and escalate his behavior from regular violence to going out here and participating in extremely deviant violence, like being a serial killer. But when I look at this whole situation with Gerald Brevard, the sad part about his whole situation is people just see it as another isolated incident, and they don't connect the dots between Gerald Brevard and many others who are men in crisis in America's ongoing man crisis that is going on all across this country. While we have money to send to foreign countries like the Ukraine to wage war, we don't invest in waging war on the man crisis here in America that is doing harm to the country. Because if we don't do anything to help these men in crisis, we're going to be in the middle of a war of our own. Because with many of these men practically having their fuses cut short as a result of the COVID-19 lockdowns, we have a whole situation where ticking time bombs have become landmines, and these landmines are practically going off every day at an increasing frequency where people feel like they have to walk on eggshells, and because they feel like they have to walk on eggshells, people are terrified to even go out of their homes. And that's why we really need to do something about this man crisis going on here in America, because a lot of these crimes are due to the dysfunctional way we have been raising boys to become men and the way we are caring for our men, because we're not going out here and investing resources and time in our men. Many of our men are having their mental health deteriorate. Many of them are becoming frustrated and angry. Many of them are extremely simmering and boiling in rage. And then some of them are just falling apart to the point where their mental health has just deteriorated to the point where they are a clear and present danger to themselves. But instead of us focusing on trying to deal with this man crisis that is practically becoming a more and more dangerous, making our society even more dangerous, we have those in government who want to just go out here and think they can lock all of these guys up instead of trying to invest in these men so that they can go out here and be productive members of society, or they can go out here and get the help that they need so that they can be taken care of and not be a harm to others. We really have to acknowledge this man crisis going on in this country, because this man crisis is getting much and much worse, and with each passing day the violence gets more and more frequent. The graphicness of the violence gets more and more disturbing, and the depravity of these individuals gets much worse. And it gets much worse because we refuse to acknowledge the man crisis. And many in these blue states like New York and Washington, D.C., don't want to acknowledge the man crisis, because acknowledging the man crisis means acknowledging many of their policies for the homeless have failed. Like here in New York City, the entire homeless services division has completely collapsed and has not taken care of many of these homeless men. And in some ways, I believe it's racist, because many of those homeless men are black men, so they don't want to help those black men. And they also don't want to help our veterans who have served our country. We need to go out here and invest in our men so that they don't wind up homeless, they don't wind up struggling, they don't wind up becoming a target of a predator. And we also need to invest in our men so that their mental health can be taken care of. I mean, if you have a country and it has resources, the ultimate goal is to take care of those so that they can take care of us. And we're not investing enough resources in our men so that they can take care of us. I mean, the man is the builder and the provider, and we need to provide for those men so that they can take care of society. And that's something we need to do, because if we don't do it, this man crisis is going to get worse. And if there are no men there to take care of anything, everything is going to fall apart, because the more and more men who wind up falling apart mean that there are less men out here to build and take care of things. And if there's nobody to take care of things, your entire society is going to collapse. So that is why it is dire to deal with this man crisis, because if we don't take care of our men, they won't be able to take care of society. And I'm seeing, again, more and more men falling completely apart, falling through the cracks, falling apart all over the place at an alarming and increasing frequency. And many in government are detached, and they're thinking it's just a crime crisis. No, the crime comes from the fact that we have not taken care of America's men. And if we don't do a job of taking care of America's men, there may not be a way to take care of America in a few years. Now, if you want to learn more about why men like this have so many troubles and so many issues, you can pick up my book, The Man Crisis, on Amazon.com in paperback and Kindle format. You can also pick up The Man Crisis on Smashwords, the iBook store, and Google Play. And if you want to see me make more men's issues videos like this, you can donate to my Patreon, my PayPal, and my Cash App by clicking the link in the description box. That's all I have to say for this video. You can comment, rate, and subscribe.